There's one thing that I've learned over the last decade of working with men, studying guys that are very successful, working with men that are incredibly successful, whether they're Fortune 500 entrepreneurs, whether they are famous athletes, whether they're famous musicians, doesn't matter what field they're in. There's one thing that makes or breaks men. And there's one thing that I believe that every single man should fight with his life to defend. One thing that you as a man, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, should fight with everything that you have to defend, to maintain, to develop, to curate in your life. And this is the one thing that forever and ever and ever has made men successful, has made men powerful and potent, has made men unstoppable in their ability to build, to create. But it's the same thing that also makes men dangerous. And that is male friendship, which is, I believe, is one of the most powerful forces in existence. But more specifically, male collaboration. Collaboration between males, when you look in the animal kingdom, is few and far between. But when it happens, there's a certain type of power and potency that unfolds. And you can see this in so many different ways. You can see this in lions, you can see this in elephants, you can see this in mythology, in Greek mythology, right? We even idolize this in movies like 300, right? You have 300 men standing together against a fucking army of tens of thousands, right? And there's something valiant about it, but more specifically, there is something unstoppable and fierce about it. And I believe that whether we like it or not, we have to acknowledge that male collaboration is in, whether we want to call it under attack, or it's in low supply, or it's under assault, or it's being challenged, or, however we want to position that. But the reality is that men are more isolated, men are more lonely, men are less collaborative than ever before, especially within Western culture. I see this all the time. Modernity has made it possible for you as a man to never have to leave your house, to never have to interact with other men, and to never actually have to get into the discomfort of the arena of being in relationship with other men, of sharpening your own masculinity, your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own physical prowess. Because generally speaking, when men get together, all of those things come to a head, right? All of those things get tested. Your opinions get laid out on display, and they get challenged, right? If you're spending time with a good group of men, there is a very high probability and a very high likelihood that things about you and your life are going to get challenged, right? The relationship that you're in. Let's say you're dating a woman and she very clearly has some red flags that you're ignoring. If you're with quality men, they're not going to put up with that shit. They are not going to just sit idly by and not say anything. They're going to challenge you. They're going to say, hey man, listen, she's cool and all, and I can tell that you really like her, and there's some things about her that I'm a little concerned about. I have some questions. Have you noticed X, Y, and Z? They're going to offer their perspective. And weak men will back away from this. And maybe weak men is too dramatic of a statement, right? Maybe it's just men who haven't been cultured, men who haven't been developed to see the value in male collaboration and male friendships. And I get this because for a very long time, if you looked at my closest friend list, a lot of them were women. I surrounded myself with a lot of women. And I did that because it was easier for me to get along with women. But I also did that because I was a horn dog and, and having a lot of women around me constantly was beneficial for a number of reasons that I think are fairly obvious. But for the most part, I shied away from male friendships because, one, my life was pretty out of integrity. And when you have solid men in your life, it's hard to continue to be out of integrity because those men are going to challenge you. They're going to push you. They're going to question you. They're going to notice things that other people either might not notice, or if they notice it, they're not going to say anything. And having quality men in your life are going to push you. And so the other reason why I think that this is so important, and the real reason why I'm very concerned about this, is that male collaboration and male groups and male friendships are one of the most potent and productive tools that we have in the world. It's the reason why 96% of electricians are men. 85% of truck drivers are men. 85% of people in the military are men. 96% of sewage disposal and sanitary services are men. Men are 95% of all oil workers in North America. So all of these stats, by the way, you can go look up. They're from the Bureau of Labor. But literally the majority of the fundamental aspects of our society, from food production to electricity to oil production, distribution, etc., it's all done by men. And it's all done by men who are working together, who have figured out the art or the science of collaboration. And if all of those men stopped deciding to collaborate with one another, the infrastructure of our societies would literally cease to exist. We wouldn't have electricity. You wouldn't have groceries showing up in your grocery store. You wouldn't have groceries being produced for the most part, and a whole slew of other things. Now, besides the societal part of it, there is the individual sense of fulfillment. There is the individual sense of purpose, of meaning, and of camaraderie. What I've learned over the years in the last decade, because now I have incredible male friends in my life. I have some incredible and outstanding men who are in my life, who show up in my life, who check in with me, who hold me accountable, who challenge me, who push me to think differently and bigger or broader or deeper, who challenge my decisions when maybe it's out of alignment with who they know me to be. Outside of the societal pieces are the very real truths that for a man to have a sense of fulfillment, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose and mission in life, he needs to be doing those things alongside other men. Now, that doesn't mean that he has to be living his purpose, or, that your career, or your vocation, or your job, or whatever, that you need to have other men involved with it all the time. You could be a solopreneur and be incredibly successful and be very happy. But to share in the spoils, to share in the ups and downs, the trials and the tribulations, the peaks and the valleys, to go along through life with other men at your side, that is a kind of asset that we as men don't often think about putting into the bank. But it's something that what I've noticed specifically pre and post pandemic, men are suffering more than ever. Loneliness is a massive, massive hindrance for a lot of men for the reasons that I've outlined previously, right? The more isolated a man is, the more prone he is to polarized thinking. The more isolated a man is, the more prone he is to extreme thinking, extreme beliefs, extreme behaviors, right? These types of things become more pervasive within us as men because there's no one there to check you. This is why if you are a man and your relationship is starting to go downhill, or your marriage is starting to go downhill, or your career or your business is starting to go downhill, and you don't have any other good men in your life, the probability of you stopping that train wreck is fairly low. And now I am living proof of this. I'm not trying to speak at you or preach to you or anything like that. My life is living proof of this. My life started to go downhill about 14 years ago, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, 12 to 14 years ago. And I didn't trust the men in my life to tell them what was going on. I didn't trust them for feedback. I didn't trust them to challenge me. And I didn't invite that in because the majority of my friends were not male. And the ones that were in my life, I didn't bring my stuff to them. I didn't tell them what was actually going on. I didn't value the male friendship in the way that I do now. And because of that, I couldn't stop the train wreck and bottomed out. And this is the case for so many men, right? And I think it was Scott Galloway that said that in the West, we are producing too many lonely men. And that the most dangerous thing that a society can have is a very large cohort of lonely, not dating, not married, not interested in relationships, not working men. Now, maybe you are one of these men. This isn't to hate on you. Maybe you're not one of those men, but you could definitely use more male friendships. Wherever you are, the one main piece that I want you to take away from this is that the thing that you should protect and fight with your life to curate is male friendship and male collaboration. If you are a man that can figure out how to get other men to collaborate, that is an asset and a skill that so few possess. Or if you look in the animal kingdom, what you're going to see is a whole bunch of males, whether it's chimpanzees or gorillas or lions or whatever species it is, who have a really hard time getting along, right? It's all about dominance. It's about aggression. It's about maintaining hierarchy and status. And so if you are a human being who can learn the skill of male participation, of getting men to participate and collaborate together, and you can create friendship and you can create groups of men who are working towards something, whatever that is. It might be building something, creating something, solving a certain problem. It might be for the specific, it's like, like the Man Talks Alliance. We got 500 plus men in there who are all committed to their own deepening of their self-leadership, right? Developing themselves to be better men, better husbands, better fathers. And so if you have other men that are supporting you in that mission, that's incredibly potent and powerful. So as a man, protect this. Do not fall in to the trap of modernity, of social media, of everything that's unfolding right now. Because the reality is that when people in power have an agenda and they want to push that agenda through, men who are willing to stand up and collaborate together are a massive threat. Men who are willing to band together and say, no, we're not going to put up with this, are a massive threat. Men who are isolated, men who are alone, men who are separated from other men that are like-minded, that think the same, they are so much easier to manipulate, to coerce, and to tell what to do. And so there's many reasons why you should fight the bitter pill of loneliness. Because in our world today, there's still this notion that there's some mysterious mystique and merit around being the Lone Ranger, right? The Marlboro Man who just rides off into the sunset by himself. Maybe you're one of those guys who can get through life on his own and you don't need anybody, and maybe that's true. There's probably a small percentage of men that can go their own way and they don't need anybody else, and they can go live on a cottage in the middle of the forest and fend for themselves, and that's genuinely the life that they want. Power to them. I have no problem with that. But the majority of men want community. The majority of men want friendship. They want to go through life alongside other quality men that are going to support them, challenge them, promote them, be there for them, etc. And so I'm going to give you 2 or 3 things that you can do very briefly. Number 1 is find groups of like-minded men who are going to push you, inspire you, challenge you, support you, and get in with those groups and be active in terms of curating friendship and finding opportunities for collaboration. This is a skill that post-artificial general intelligence is going to be very, very valuable, in my opinion. People with high levels of social acumen and social skills are going to be very, very, very valuable. Secondly is get uncomfortable and get IRL, get in real life. Go and meet up with your buddies, right? Avoid getting stuck in online forums, on Reddit, on wherever you are, right? I mean, I love Reddit, it's not to knock it, but avoid getting stuck in online forums 24/7. Get in real life. Schedule in real life meetups, schedule meetings, schedule coffees, schedule hangouts, schedule concerts. Go and be in real life with the men that you want to support, that you want to push and challenge, and that you want to support you and push and challenge you. And get in real life with the men that you want to collaborate with. This is necessary on so many levels: socially, economically, psychologically, spiritually. Throughout human history, the potency of men collaborating is a betterment on a social level, but it's also, I almost hesitate to say it, but it's also mandatory for individual happiness as a man. It's also mandatory, in my opinion, for your individual sense of happiness and fulfillment as a man, right? As you have kids, you want other men that you trust and love and appreciate to help raise your son or daughter. As you have a marriage, you want other men to help protect and provide for the sanctity of that relationship. As you build a business, right? As you venture out in the world, you want other men to go along with you. There's a great famous African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that is probably one of the most underrated statements of all time. And if you want to go far, go together with other great men. So share your comments, share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, DM me, let me know your thoughts on this one. But man it forward. Share this episode with somebody that you know could use to hear it. Maybe one of your buddies, maybe one of your brothers. And until next week, as always, this is Connor Beaton signing off.